4, 3, 2, 1. Overtime.
Hello and welcome back to Overtime, a show where 2 Europeans and 0 North Americans talk about all things related to competitive Team Fortress 2. My name is Bempler, and today we've got a very special guest for us. We've got Gideon from Being Esports here to talk about, well, Being Esports and the UBERFEST lands. How are you doing, Gideon?
Oh, I'm doing mighty fine. It has been an awesome day of cleaning the entire day, so I'm very happy to finally talk about games and not so much cleaning the flat.
Yeah, no, it's that time of year, right? Busy times up before Christmas, and again, obviously, it's not too far out from LAN as well. So I don't know. You're always.
It has been
busy
all
game.
about Christmas this time. Yeah, we're doing it the first time at my place with the family, so there's a lot of pressure on me to perform well as a host
yours.
for
Oh,
the
damn,
family
okay.
Christmas. Yeah. So it's gonna be crazy. I hope you had a great Sunday as well.
Oh, it's been good. It's been good. I've just had a little bit of the football on. I saw it was 1-0 to Sunderland last I checked. So I haven't quite caught the end of the game. Maybe that is going to age too well. But yeah, I guess we're sort of here. I guess I'll let you sort of introduce yourself, right? I've introduced you as Gideon from Being Esports. Like, what's your how would you like to be sort of seen here? What's your title?
Oh, what's my title? So I am the CEO of Being Esports and one of the 2 founders. The other founder also being a CEO of the company. So we do everything in tandem, I think you would say. Yeah, how would I want to be introduced? I don't know. I'm a guy doing things in esports, I would say.
Sure. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, with I guess we should probably start at the start, right? With kind of Being Esports. Like, how did it come to be? How did you end up founding an esports company?
By accident, I would say. I've told this story many times, and I think it was slightly different every single time. But the one thing that stays the same is pretty much out of necessity and by accident. I think a mix of the two. We are a now online and offline esports event management agency, doing everything from everything around the event. To very small little services that could be done within an esports event. So we either have our proprietary events, but we also work with other event organizations where we just contribute a tiny part. And we were brought into existence, however you want to say it, out of the necessity that the ESL, who I assume you're aware of what it is?
Yep.
Yeah, the ESL has been bought a couple of years ago, and already before this purchase process, they quite drastically started cutting back on national esports leagues and tournaments. They basically said the only thing that we really care about anymore is big global events. We want to do those where hundreds of thousands or millions of people are watching and a lot of players are playing, and we don't really care about those hard to monetize, hard to manage, super unique national competitions anymore. And I have been a member of a community back then, which was the PUBG community. I was a player. I was quite all right at the game, I would say. Never super amazing, but I was a little I played on quite a good level. And we basically decided that the community is too big and too vibrant to be shut down like that, and that the community really needed like a grassroots level tournament in the German speaking scene. So we tried our best to host the national championship ourselves. We wrote to the publisher and asked them for a little bit of prize money, and we tried to gather a group of people who would help us in broadcasting the event. And that thing basically grew so quickly that the publisher approached us and said, could you run these other events for us, and these other ones, and these other ones? And it over a span of, I would say, 8 or 9 months, it grew so big that we had to have a company. And then we created Being Esports as a company. Before that, it was just a brand. And then we added more games and tried to do basically the same thing for other games as well that we've done for PUBG in the beginning.
That's so cool. The fact that you did the event so well that the publisher comes in and says, "Yeah, no, that was amazing. We want more of that." But no, it's,
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm not. If I'm talking too much, please stop me.
No,
But
no,
I could obviously.
You're here to talk.
I could ramble about this forever. What I'm just going to say is, I'm not even sure if we did it so well. But one of the key pillars of Being Esports that we have had within us in the beginning and then noticed we had it, and since then basically wrote it into our like core values of being esports, is that we want to be the perfect in between of being super passionate about the games that we do, but also giving the highest level of professionalism that we are able to provide to the scene, which is where I think we can provide value to a lot of scenes. And I think we didn't even execute the first tournaments particularly well. It is just that everybody else, every other service provider for this particular game wasn't highly passionate about the game. It was a time of like 2020, 2019, 2021 was a time in the market where the biggest agencies hosting esports shows and running esports events weren't necessarily the players, and the gamers themselves weren't really so motivated and passionate about the games. It is just that the scene grew so rapidly, so quickly, that there was a lot of money to be made, and production companies turned into companies that also hosted esports events because the publishers had the necessity of having these people providing services. So it was pretty easy to run them better than most others, because without being too mean, 2 of our 5 competitors, I think they had never even played the game. So it was much easier to provide a good service to the community than those 2 companies.
Yeah, that's so cool. Was this like you said like sort of 2019? Was this like first event? Was it like pre-COVID, or was it like online in 2020?
The first event, I have always run events through my personal brand and broadcast. Like 10 years ago, I think I already had my own events in different games other than PUBG. I always loved doing that for whatever reason. And I always loved commenting on games. I started as a very young boy, like 13, commenting on Warcraft 3, like for ESL radio back in the day when Twitch wasn't even a thing. So I always loved doing that. But yeah, the first tournaments were pre-COVID, 2019. We had 2 of them. And then basically our first season of the championship that we hosted was exactly when COVID started. It was like March of 2020, I would say.
Yeah, unfortunate time to run an esports event, I guess.
Yes, true.
Did you get all the way through?
Sorry, did we get all the way through what?
Yeah, the event. Like, did it sort of like get cut by COVID? Or
Oh no, it was online, and so it was.
Oh, it was online. It was okay. It was online. Okay.
I thought you were not being sarcastic, because it was
No.
quite a fortunate time, because everyone was at home anyways. So we had a very, very amazing start with basically like 50 teams more signing up for our tournament than had signed up for the previous ESL championship. We had tons and tons. We had like 6,000 peak viewers, I think, in a tournament that had never had more than 2,000 or something. Given that we also had some luck with Twitch presentation on one of their front pages, but it was amazing. It was a very, very crazy time. Everybody told me that I was a madman for quitting my job during COVID, because there was no easier way to get a lot of money for not working at all in the business that I was in at the time. Simply we got paid without showing up, but that didn't interest me too much. So yeah, but that's the part that was hard. The first event was successful from the beginning because of COVID, I would say.
Yeah, that's funny. Like, a lot of stuff popped up around COVID. Like, that's how I kind of got into esports as well, was around that sort of time. Obviously, I'd watched for a while before, but like, it was in COVID. It's like, well, I've got nothing else to do. So I ended up like getting involved with some like Rocket League stuff that was like, again, getting far more engagement, far more entry and that kind of thing than like it would have done beforehand, right? Because everyone's just stuck inside. It's like, what better things are there to do than to just like sit and play or watch or commentate on video games? Like, it was a weird time, but like for like the growth of esports, like it actually works out pretty well, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely. A couple of things happened that were really great for the growth of esports, but COVID, at least for the first year, obviously really helped. We then suffered a lot from it because everything got so expensive. So the combination of the unfortunate like several war situations happening around the world right now, and the combination of that with COVID made inflation rise so high that all of the companies that had an interest in sponsoring us basically had their marketing money cut. So it was almost impossible to find a sponsor, while we had so many people watching. So COVID wasn't only great, obviously, while it was not great at all in thousands of other places. I always have to be careful how I word this. I obviously would love for COVID to never have happened for so many different reasons. But yeah, it helped in the beginning in terms of reach, really didn't help in terms of the market situation, basically.
Yeah, I guess it's still sort of a hole. It feels like esports is still trying to dig itself out of since then.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of tournaments like struggling, and like I know you said there was like the big ESL merger now, and like it feels like in some of the big games at least, like it's sort of like the event calendar is just like dominated by the gigantic, almost like too big to fail monoliths that can just like dump money in.
It's the last place where you can make money having the players be the product. Right? So I thought about this and talked about this so much recently because we have a huge political shift in Germany where esports is now considered sport and where you can now create a I don't know the word in English that I'm trying to say, but it is now basically possible to create a non-profit esports organization in Germany, or it will be starting on the 1st of January. And I think that this is basically the major paradigm shift that we will have in the next couple of years, where we finally understand that just as if you go and play football as a child, your parents pay a tiny monthly fee for you to play football. If you go and play tennis, it's the same. If you go and play chess, it's the same. If you're in a knitting club, it's the same. Basically, wherever you go and spend your time, you are the customer who actually has to pay a tiny fee to do it. Esports is the only place where that hasn't been the case until now, and I think that will change very drastically quite soon, because basically these major tournaments are the last ones where you can make enough money to keep the train going. If the EWC had never happened, the bubble would have popped, in my opinion, obviously, only massively, just like 2 years ago or something. We always like to say that the EWC did put a tiny band-aid that was too tiny for the wound on top of a huge wound that will inevitably make the person that has the wound suffer quite a lot. So without talking too long, I think this is the way that esports will go, and I think these major tournaments will only have the scene survive so much longer.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. So you think sort of long term we're gonna you think it's the players are gonna start sort of paying in? Is that like what you're saying here? Like in the
I think so. I mean, it is the only place in the world where the players as the clients get the service for free. Right? It's like there's no other sport where that is the case. There's no sport where I can go somewhere. I can't go to the gym and just, expect to do gym sports for free. And if I lift the weights really well, they will even pay me, right? Not on a national level. Obviously, there are pro bodybuilders, but everybody else has to pay. And in the esports scene, for whatever reason, everybody assumes that on every level of the game, they must be the ones who get everything for free. So there are a lot of issues on a lot of parts of the esports scene, but I would say that the players are the ones who will quite soon notice that they also have an obligation to carry the scene as well.
No, that's an interesting thought, especially with like the what you said about the EWC as well. Which for anyone who doesn't know, I'm assuming that's the Esports World Cup, the one in Saudi Arabia, where we get like basically every single esport that there is, dump a load of prize money in and say for this month of the year or however many weeks, like everyone goes out to Riyadh and no, it's profitable for the few weeks, right? But like I guess it's kind of weird. Like I follow a lot of chess, and you see like chess players getting picked up for like a few months at a time just around like where the Esports World Cup is to go and play like computer chess basically at these events. But I'm not sure what harm that would do for the rest of the year, but maybe they earn enough. I don't know. I won't claim to know too much about sort of the financials of the Esports World Cup and the PIF, but
I would be very surprised if the people behind it weren't burning money at unfathomable rates, right? I mean, it's like if the Counter-Strike tournament at the EWC is watched by 1/10 of the people that watch a Counter-Strike major, and the League of Legends tournament is watched by 1/10 of the people that watch the League of Legends World Championships. And it's the same for every other title. They have sim racing tournaments with $2 million of prize pool, and like 180 people are watching. I think they are trying to play the long game. And exactly what you just mentioned is happening from it. All of these esports organizations that were super close to going under, or at least going through drastic periods of restructuring, now have this one huge monolith that they can hope for to carry them through the entire year, right? Because if they do well in 2 or 3 tournaments, they have a couple of millions that they can use, and if they don't do well, they don't. And it's crazy how the EWC is now basically the single center focus point for so many players and organizations. And while I don't necessarily hate the EWC entirely, I think it's just horrible for the organical growth and soul of the scene. Organic? I'm sorry, I'm not perfect with those words.
Yeah, I get, because like the worry is, right, obviously at some point the PIF might just pull funding for it.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
if that happens, there's like there's again like expectations have just been raised, salaries have been raised, all those sorts of things have all been there with the expectation that there's going to be another Esports World Cup. And
yeah,
that
I mean,
that
it's
might
like
not happen 1 year.
It's like a plane that was already in the process of like a crash landing, and we were above the sea, so we had a really nice surface to crash land on. And now the EWC came and gave a little bit of like upwind so that the plane could fly further. But now we are like over really rough terrain, and if we crash now, everybody's gonna die. Basically, that's how it feels like from our perspective. And if they were to, for whatever reason, announce that next year there's not going to be an EWC, or like that has already been announced, but 2027 would not be another EWC, I think 80% of the scene would go out of business. Like 80% of the players, teams, TOs, production companies, I think they would all die, because it's the only place they are still earning money.
Yeah, and like you say, it'd probably be the smaller esports that it'd hurt most as well, right? Because like you're saying, your League of Legends and your CS2 and all those, like it's not like, obviously it's still got big prize pools and such, but like it's not the focal point of the calendar. But like for a lot of other stuff, like even like I say with chess, like I swear that the prize pools were like they were rivaling like some of the biggest events.
Yeah.
For online chess, which it's not necessarily sustainable, and also, I guess if you want to go into the like the ethics of sort of where it's what the purpose of it is as well, it's maybe not great long term, but it is kind of propping up a lot of, like you say, it's given us the updraft to stay afloat for a bit longer, but obviously not without some consequences. But I guess sort of moving back to sort of to just kind of being esports, right? Like coming into like 2025, what are being esports doing like right now? Obviously, you started off doing a few various PUBG events and that. What games are you in now? Like, what's your like typical events? Is it mostly online, offline, like local tournaments, like national level competition? What are you working on currently?
I would say it's a mix of all of them. We have currently 3 national championships, and we will add a 4th in March of next year. National always meaning Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, which basically we see as one country in terms of esports, because it's just the German-speaking scene. So we will have 4 of those, potentially 5 very soon, because we found a liking in providing tournaments for our national scene, and we hope that with the mentioned political changes, there will be a really nice way to structure these so that everybody can have a lot of benefit from it. And then we do several offline events every year. I would say 5 on average. So for 2026, I assume hopefully another TF2 event, and then Warcraft event, AoE 2 event, a PUBG event, and maybe another game that we're going to add. And then we do services that we provide to other companies. And those are actually the ones mostly paying the bills. The small national events don't really pay the bills that well. They mostly carry themselves, which is great. The offline tournaments are tons of work for very little money, sometimes even losing money. And the services that we provide is where we where we take the money from to fund all of these other ventures, basically. So what I mean by services, we are the referees or the cameramen or the player managers for other tournaments where they simply don't have the stuff to perform those services themselves.
Okay, and kind of one, like, I guess sort of a burning question from me at least, and maybe from some of the TF2 people. Okay, like coming into last year, like where did TF2 come into this? Because honestly, the LAN last year, UBERFEST 2024, at least amongst like the players and I'm assuming along like my fellow casters and talent and such, it was a really well kept secret. Like we were getting a second LAN in 2024. Everyone sort of assumed we were going to have Poland and then maybe another Poland the year afterwards. But like they've been up until last year, there was like quite a drought in terms of like European LAN events.
Mhm.
At least like after like Insomnia had died as well. Like what brought you to TF2? Like how did UberFest 2024 become like an idea?
I kind of knew this question was going to come, and I thought about this the entire day while cleaning, and I still don't 100% know. What I know is we, as being esports, quite quickly noticed that we have one specific kind of community member that we work really well with, and that is a person above the age of 19, I would say. Mostly that doesn't mean that we don't have a couple of 16-year-olds that we really enjoy having, but in general it's like a little bit older person playing a game that is a niche game that doesn't really have the biggest amount of publisher support. Everything that I've previously mentioned is basically the foundation for what I just said, which is these people know that they cannot take every tournament for granted. They know that the passion for their game is actually fueling them wanting to play the game, not massive marketing money, not massive tournament prize money winnings. It's simply just the people who really love the games. They really they maybe grew up with it, and the game plays a role in their life beyond just it being the big thing right now. And every single game that we do, PUBG, Warcraft, Dota 2 is also one of our fastest growing games. Age of Empires 2, it's the same situation basically. It's older games with older communities that have at least once almost died out as an esports title and have then been saved by somebody in the past, or saved by a new patch or whatever in the past. And TF2 really fit that narrative well. It worked really well. We had a look at it. We spoke to a couple of people in the community, and it felt as if TF2 was basically just another PUBG or just another Dota or whatever in that term. And we really wanted to host more offline events. While these make zero sense for a company, I'm going to say that once again, I've said that 100 times in the last 2 years, whenever somebody asks me why these really make zero sense for a company, we seem to have a ton of fun with them. I think that's the main point. We learn tons. We prepare ourselves for the hopeful future of being esports, hosting even bigger offline events. We learn, we build a network, we learn about communities. And I think we simply just wanted to do another one. So we went and looked for opportunities, and I knew a couple of people who were involved with the Arcadia TF2 event in Hamburg because I live here in Hamburg, and they told me, all right, ask this person, ask this person, ask this person. And then we spoke with all of those and started planning, and it worked out somehow.
So I'm guessing that's where bonk came from. Was that one of those discussions?
Yeah, exactly. That's where many of the ideas came from. Yeah, but yes, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, cool. So when you were listing those things there, like the list of things you look for in a game, like I was thinking in my head, yeah, TF2 like hits all of those notes in a massive way, all the way through. Yeah, but not like I say, it was a nice shock because we like I'd say like we were worried, but like the kind of the frequency of LANs post COVID in Europe was like not looking great. We had obviously 2020 and 2021 were taken out by COVID. 2022 we had Insomnia and we had Arcadia, but then the Arcadia venue closed down.
Yeah.
And there was basically no signs of an alternative venue or an event being run like that again.
Yeah.
And then we at that point then Insomnia closed and stopped hosting events. TF2 wasn't going to be there. So yeah, we were in a bit of a bit of a rough patch. But no, it was yeah, that event in Dortmund was absolutely fantastic. To be quite honest, like it's not like another LAN I've really been to be honest. I think the yeah, I want to talk like yeah, we talk about the venue in Dortmund for a minute because like that yeah, how did you end up with Baystack? Was there like any connection with the Poland LAN? Because like it's the same company. It's the two venues they have. That's sort of
No connection at all. When we got to know them, we didn't even know that they had a place in Poland. The guy behind the venue idea, behind basically the investor behind Base Stack, reached out in 2022, I think. Really cool guy, really awesome, super accomplished businessman, had made I think like 9-figure money in basically selling another business, and wanted to do something in the esports scene. And that's how we got to know him and his idea. Unfortunately, I think the whole thing in the end died because he wanted it to be too bling bling and not really like the way that esports should probably be done on that level. But that's another story. No, but we got to know him in 2022. He asked us a ton of questions. What we think would be the right thing with the venue and where he should do it and how big it should be and what kind of partners he should get involved. Still one of the nicest meals I ever had, because he invited us to this restaurant that I would never in my life imagined being at, basically. And yeah, that's how we got to meet them, and we kept talking and talking and talking. And then they needed help with basically jump starting the operation. They needed help with getting events into their venue, so that people would notice the place. And that's why we got a pretty nice deal. At least we thought it was a nice deal. In the end, it ended up being a horrible deal for us. But at the moment, it sounded really, really amazing because we got a venue for cheap, had a really nice partnership that basically meant if the events go well, both sides profit. And if the events don't go well, both sides don't profit. And that's how we basically started there. And then we helped them with their initiation event in January of the same year, where we got the first couple of like dozens or hundreds of people into their place with a couple of tournaments that we organized. And yeah, that's how that came to be.
That's really cool. So like so when it comes to yeah, obviously the venue, right? Like for Dortmund, like that it didn't last too long after UBERFEST 2024, did it? It was like was it January of this year it went out? Like I don't know, did that like hit you guys? If you're saying it's like a success of the venue is tied to the success of you guys, how did that hurt?
That hurt in so many ways. Number one, because this is gonna sound so self-loving, so I'm gonna say that we obviously have no idea about so many of these things, but everything that contributed to the downfall of Baystack, we saw it coming, and we told them, me and my business partner. We met with them and we told them, this is not the right place, this is not the right community, you're making this into basically whenever they didn't have events, it was an internet cafe for the kind of people that you don't really want to have in your venue. They did like Call of Duty and FIFA mini PlayStation 5 tournaments, and things broke and things got stolen and there were fights and all of that stuff, because the people who play that Friday evening are the people who black out, drink, and then play a couple of games, and then I don't know. You can imagine whatever bad things might happen. Then it probably happened at Baystack, and a ton of other things where we told them that they really shouldn't do that. They still did it. They were really focused on having it in the central road in Dortmund, which made no sense at all. It only made the rent super, super expensive, which simply didn't have to be, because there's no benefit in having the venue in such a busy place, basically. You don't have walk-in customers with an event like that. It's simply not happening. And yeah, they went out of business, I think, on the 27th of December 2023, I think, and didn't tell us. Basically, we found out when we got a letter telling us, hey, these 2 invoices that you sent, don't expect them to be paid so soon, basically, which was another kick in the lower regions, because we had such a constant communication with them, but they simply didn't tell us that they would file for bankruptcy, still having tons of our money. Yeah, it ended up hurting even more because we didn't have a place anymore for our events, and they were a really, really awesome place. But financially, it also hurt. Almost killing our business. Actually, it almost cost us our company.
Yeah, so how many events were you running there at that venue, like, at the time? Obviously, beyond TF2, is it like, you said you do other esports there. Was it like your main venue for stuff?
I think we had 5 events there
wow.
in total over the span of like 10 months or something, right? From January to November or December.
Yeah, no, that's that's wild. So for all those, are they like, obviously TF2? Where we're fortunate that you found another venue. We found Leak Camp in Weidlingen, right? Like,
Mhm.
have all the other events all fared so well?
So we have one other event that we really love. The name is Rara Land, like in analogy to that La La Land Ryan Gosling movie. And we haven't had one of those since, simply because it is highly focused. It's a Warcraft 3 event, and the idea basically is we pay the money to fly in all of the world's greatest Warcraft 3 player, who mostly are Koreans, Chinese, and Russians. So not exactly the people who are easy to fly into Germany. And we make a huge show around them facing against each other on stage, which is a thing that hasn't happened in the EU for like 10 years until we started doing it. And basically the event is then funded through the viewers, not the players. We also do a LAN around it, but the people who really fund the event are the 200, 300 people who buy a viewer ticket exclusively to watch those stage matches. And we haven't really found a place that ticks the boxes of having a really nice big stage and viewing area as well as a LAN area. There are a few places, they are all not in Germany, and getting them to sign a deal that makes it at least possible for us to break even is really tough. Because the one thing that is similar with almost all our events is we generate a ton of bar revenue, like for drinks and snacks and all of that stuff. And all of these venues are super used to that not being the case, which is why they don't want to strike a deal for the bar revenue. They don't want to revenue share their bar revenue. And if we can't get that, we can't do events. And that's why Warcraft hasn't had an event since. But we're still fighting. We're still trying.
Yeah, it's really funny you said it with the stage. That's one memory I think I'll have forever, is that UBERFEST 2024 grand final on the stage. Like, you couldn't move in that stage room at all. It was like shoulder to shoulder the whole way. It was the best atmosphere I think I've ever been at for any event. That was phenomenal. That, like,
I agree.
it was great. But like you say, there was a lot about the venue. The venue was huge, like, in terms of like floor space. And, like, literally right on the main street, like, the Christmas market when we were there was outside the door at the front
Yeah.
of the venue. That must have cost them a fortune to keep that venue open.
It was per. I don't know the exact numbers, but I think like 20 square meters of that venue did cost in rent what the entire lead camp in Weiblingen costs per month. Because
wow.
this is like number one real estate, right? It's where you actually
Yeah.
want to put you want to put a Gucci store there or something where you really want to have everybody who's visiting Dortmund see your store. And the investor really anticipated this to be the major selling point of the venue, because he I think, I don't know. Maybe he had a great idea and just didn't work out. I don't want to say that he had no idea, because he was obviously this super successful business person. But I'm 99% certain that if they had just taken the identical venue and moved it 10 streets away, where rent is like a tenth of the money that they paid in that road, it would have been hugely successful, because they ended up going out of business because they couldn't pay rent anymore. They didn't have the money to cover the rent payment, so they had to file for bankruptcy.
Yeah, it's a yeah, I dread to think what that that bill would have been on the rent. But, like, going back to, so you said they filed for bankruptcy in the December. You guys obviously found out. Did you find out when the public found out? In, like, when there was, like, the tweet out saying, "Okay, we're gonna, like, cancel karaoke on Friday," and then it's it? we're done.
Yeah.
Like, did you find out then with us?
We have a really good relationship with a local esports team in Dortmund, and they noticed like 1 or 2 days earlier because they had been sent. When you file for bankruptcy, the first thing that happens is you have to be put in the bankruptcy registry, basically, so that other companies know before making a deal with you that you have filed for bankruptcy. Basically, it's like a protective regulation, and I got a screenshot of that registry entry 2 days before that tweet on and that homepage post by Basetech were made. So we found out a little bit earlier, but not a lot earlier.
So, like, yeah, it's still a bit of a shock because it was a shock to all of us as well. What happened then in terms of, obviously, 2024, you said at the end of the event at UBERFEST, you went up and there's the clip of you that was in the 2025 intro video saying we'll do it again at these dates in September. Obviously, that was contingent on base stack Dortmund still existing. What happened from then? Like, after obviously the event closes, what were your criteria for trying to find somewhere else to run UBERFEST?
So I will be very honest. Number one was obviously survival. I think I said this publicly already a couple of times, but the main situation that we had is we had a deal with them where they would sell the tickets, they would sell all of the drinks. We would then make a huge like financial report, thinking about everything, also the money that was made with merchandise, and then we would calculate what the event had made and then split basically the earnings of the event 50-50. And they still had the money for the UBERFEST event, and they still had the money for the Warcraft 3 event that we had done like 1 month prior. And after they filed for bankruptcy, they were then officially managed through a government person, basically, or a government assigned person. And that person basically said, nope, you're never going to see that money anymore. And that was like 21,500 euros or something, which is 20% of what we are making in a year, or at least were making in a year back then. So that's basically our entire winnings for a year gone right away. So surviving was the number one priority. When we noticed that we would likely survive, we then started looking for new venues. And to be honest, the main focus, which is also why we ended up at Lead Camp in Stuttgart, was a place where we think we could create a similar atmosphere for the people on site, while obviously having to sacrifice the stage. That was done in a very, very long series of discussions with different people, not only for TF2, but also for other games. And basically everyone on the TF2 side said, this might even be the better venue. This might even be better. The stage will suck, but it might even be better having all of these individual rooms, having a house entirely for ourselves, and not being in such a busy place. A lot of the TF2 community members mentioned safety concerns in Dortmund. We've heard this from other communities as well, but the TF2 community really didn't like Dortmund. And so we had a ton of reasons why Weiblingen or Stuttgart could work really well. But the key focus, to actually answer your question, I'm sorry, was, can we actually host an event there that will feel like a being esports event?
I can't believe like you just had to tank losing like 20,000 on a on an event, because that's probably like, obviously I'm not going to ask for like exactly how much it costs. That's like your outgoings for a LAN, right? Like that's like
you can ask.
That's like an entire LAN's worth of money, like, in my head.
UBERFEST 2025 cost 39,700 something euros. I made this semi-public. I sent it to all of the individual talents, and it's totally fine if everybody knows. I will just quickly have a look at the exact number. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's somewhere along those lines. The venue was 19,000. Let me have a look. Maybe it's 30.
So you lost more on them filing for bankruptcy than it cost for like the entire venue for however many days we had this year.
Yeah.
That's a wild amount of money to just have completely out of pocket.
I mean, just to have this out, UBERFEST 2025 was 34,526 euros and 95. cents. So that's around what the previous one did also cost. The previous one was a little less because venue rental was a little less because we had this amazing deal, right? They wanted us to be there. They wanted us to fill their place, while Lead Camp doesn't have that issue. Lead Camp is quite often quite busy, so they are not that keen on us having the event there, while they now are asking when we're going to host the next one. But yeah.
Yeah, they know now.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I know you said about like the venue from like a TF2 perspective. I've got to say, like it felt compared to at least like my other limited experience with going to lands, right? The way it was, because obviously it's set up Lead Camp for anyone who wasn't there. It's like, the primary business model is like almost boot camping, right?
Yes.
I've seen that we had like the M80, the CS team were there boot camping for the first couple of days of the event. And there's various other teams that come in. There's actually a cool story I got told. I'm not sure if you heard this from one of the staff at League Camp. There was a photo in the wall of VP when they won the major back. Was it 2021 when they won the CS2, the CS Go major? It was back then. And VP came for a boot camp shortly afterwards. Saw the picture on the wall, and they all just signed it.
Yeah.
And the picture is still there on the wall in League Camp. You can see this like this signed picture from all the coaches and stuff all signed it as well. It was cool, but like because it's that kind of venue, you know what I'm trying to say is it's like the actual like the desks are gigantic. There's all like adjustable height desks. There's windows all over the place. It's not like you're sort of locked in like a little box. It's actually it feels kind of luxurious for when you're playing. It was a really nice experience. Now, I've heard that from speaking to a lot of people who were playing there. Like it was a genuinely really nice place to be.
Yeah, that's what many mentioned also in the questionnaire that we sent out. And yeah, that's their key business model. Their key business model is not events. Their key business model is providing high quality boot camps to really, really high leveling teams. It's like not only M80, it's also Liquid and Furia and all of these other like high quality organizations are visiting them whenever there are European events, for example. And then another thing that actually appears to work quite well for them, I don't know their financials, obviously, but another thing that works really well is workations. So they have these huge business clients who send 30 to 40 of their employees to Lead Camp to basically work on the PCs and then in the evenings play their favorite games, because so many people are gamers now, right? So obviously a lot of employees are also gamers. So this is basically an add-on that some companies have for their employees where they can visit Lead Camp for free.
I wish my company would do that. That sounds well fun.
Yeah, same here.
I'd be down for that.
I mean, back in the day, that would have been amazing. I maybe would have stayed with my old job if they would have had something like that.
No, it's cool. I guess that the one thing, at least in terms of what I'm like, if I'm ever like thinking, because like when Insomnia broke, when Insomnia like fell apart basically, and there was talk about like, oh, is there going to be another LAN in the UK? Like everyone, curious as we are, we'll just have a Google and see, oh, is there any venues in the UK and that kind of thing. And like one of the key points for like any TF2 event, there's like a hierarchy of needs. Number one, like above having PCs, having a stage, having transport links, those sorts of things. Number one at the top of the entire tree is to have a bar, right? Like, and obviously the League Camp didn't have a bar by default. Like, and you basically assembled a bar. You got provided your own, went and like sourced all the drinks and snacks and things for it. Like, is that something you normally do at events? And like, how did that go for you
No,
guys?
we had never done that before. Amazing challenge. So much learned. So many things we did wrong. We rented the bar from a local sports club. There was this local sports club that said, all right, give us a couple $100 and you can have it, basically. And that's how we ended up having one. So we had never done that before. Usually venues have them and are very keen on keeping them. We now know why. Because it's a major budget driver. It generates a lot of revenue, especially if you have people like the TF2 community visiting you. It's once again the place that basically covered the cost of the event, or at least almost covered the cost of the event. So yeah, we had never done that. We have never even had a terminal to accept card payments. We've never, like, the only places we sell something is online, usually, where you don't need that. So all of that had to be learned from the ground up.
Oh, that's so cool. Like, yeah, because I know obviously it was like being staff themselves, right? Like there was obviously you behind the bar for a while, and there was like various other people from staff. Like, I've got to ask, has Shruki ever worked behind the bar before?
No, no,
How?
never. Shruki is, yeah, he's the kind of guy you put wherever. He has had 2 of these events in a row now. The previous one was where he had to manage the stage process of a 50,000 euro prize money tournament, which he also had never done. Like, never even, he didn't even know the game too well. He had to work with these people who had like 2 million followers on YouTube, obviously having a very good idea how they wanted things to be run. And he had to tell them, no, you're going to wait for 5 minutes now. And he executed it perfectly. It's like, as long as he has a singular task at hand, he's an attack dog doing it perfectly every single time. I don't know how he does it, but he's just such an amazing guy.
Yeah, I will say maybe it's the link with the alcohol, but like of everyone I've spoken to like post LAN about it, like everyone remembers Shruki, everyone remembers
Yeah.
the calls of the Jägermeister and getting the bonks. Actually, it's a funny one. There's a group chat I'm in with a bunch of my TF2 friends, and we did like a group photo, and he snuck around outside like in the dark and just like he was like downing a pint like over like my shoulder on the photo. So like he's there immortalized in our LAN photos as the shadowy figure in the dark outside.
He
You
is
can like
a
just see like his
character.
hat.
Yeah.
No, it was absolutely great. But no, the fact that you'd done the bar for the first time as well, and just like that's cool. I want to ask like because I remember. So to distract a little bit, speaking of the bar, right? We spoke about red and blue bonk earlier, right? I remember we were like, obviously, for anyone who wasn't there last year as well, last year blue bonk did a lot better than red. So I
Mhm.
know this time around you were like, and a fair few other people. There's like basically anyone who was in the venue on Wednesday was kind of involved around the bar, just like sipping like various concoctions of drinks, right? Like which was your favorite of the two this time? Did you try both?
So I'm gonna be really honest. I have no idea why, because I have no reason for it. I love the Blue Bonk the first time around in 2024.
Mhm.
This time, I think arguably the Red Bonk was simply just better. Even though I was still sad when the Blue Bonk lost, I have no particular reason why. We did put quite a lot of effort, I would say. And we tried a couple of different versions at home, and then we also tried 3 other versions in several different. Yeah, I will have to Google this word. Wait a moment. Mischverhältnis. So we tried 3 different ones in different mixing ratios and found what I think to be the perfect solution. We used like much better ingredients, I think, than last time around. So yeah, I think the red one was always meant to win after people noticed. Funny enough, Blue Bonk was massively in the lead for day 1 and 2 until people noticed how pleasing the red bonk actually was this time.
Yeah, so Blue Bonk won by a mile in 2024.
Yeah.
So yeah, people came in with a preconceived like notion of who they thought was which one they thought was better, I guess, and
Yeah.
defaulted to blue. But I don't know. It's a great way to like drive bar sales. To be honest, like make anything into a competition, and people will pick a side and start like vehemently defending it. Like everyone
Yeah.
was like adamant, no, this one is the best. This one's the best, and no,
It's funny how people can pick sides where it makes no sense, right? There's
yeah.
absolutely no reason to pick sides, but yeah, it still happens.
Yeah, no, it was it was absolutely yeah, the bar was obviously good. I guess one thing I want to talk about a bit as well, like obviously the event you're saying like the main business focus for League Camp, it's yeah, you said it's these like gaming sort of take your business to go and do games, or it's boot camping, right? But like again, they had like a lot of tech and like a full like green screen area as well, like for broadcasting, right? So like I guess that makes things a lot easier in terms of picking a venue too. Because I know, for example, like the ones we do in Poland, there is none of that. Like we
Mhm.
just like set up everything in the corner of a room, like literally from scratch, like out of suitcases. But no, I think that's like that was like a really nice feature. I know the green screen. We had some funny moments with that. That was good.
Yeah, they have all of that because some of the teams that are buying boot camps at their place or renting their place to have a boot camp, they also want to create their own media obviously some of these teams are like huge esports athletes, right? They play in Counter-Strike majors, they play in League of Legends World Championships, they play for big prize money and big media contracts, basically. So they want to create really nice content pieces before they visit a big tournament. And they also have every single year, when a new major World of Warcraft patch is published, there's always this thing called Race to Worlds First, where basically the biggest organizations in World of Warcraft battle against each other who can finish the new biggest dungeon first. And that also is usually produced highly professional. Like, it's tens and tens of thousands of people watching, and they always have one of the biggest organizations in their venue, which is why they have all of this production stuff.
Yeah, it's cool. I guess I can't speak too much. I don't really understand a great deal of how, like, at least the tech of production works. I'm on the other side of the camera. I have the camera pointed at me most of the time, which I'm happy that way. It looks complicated, but no, it was a really nice setup, you know, with
Yeah.
with all those bits. I want to talk a bit though about yeah. So obviously you've come to this like new venue and such like, and so the way that UBERFEST is at right now, like, what were like the big challenges, you know, doing an event in Stuttgart, going again for like the second time? Like, what did you like learn from 2024 at least that you could sort of bring into 2025, make some difference?
Funny enough, I don't have an immediate answer for that. So there were a couple of key points. We always do a questionnaire afterwards. We think this will sound so PR talk, but we think the key group of people who can tell us how to make the event better are obviously the people who have visited the event. So every single time when we send out, every single time when we end an event, we send out a questionnaire and ask politely whether people would be willing to gift us 3 or 4 of their minutes. And very often people do. And unfortunately, very often these come back highly positive with not a lot of constructive criticism that we can use to improve the events, because we are in a very amazing place where people usually like the events a lot. We get very, very limited negative feedback. In Dortmund, it was a lot regarding safety. I actually sent the results of our 2024 questionnaire for TF2 to the local politics in Dortmund, telling them this is how people from other countries other than Germany perceive your city. Do something, please. Because people really didn't like the area and really thought it was sketchy. And some people had some negative run-ins with locals where, unfortunately, like, nobody got hurt, but it seemed to be quite close to that a couple of times. So that's something that we really didn't want to repeat. So we try to focus on finding a place where that wouldn't happen anymore. Other than that, we only fixed minor things. Obviously, learning from Dortmund and from the bankruptcy, we really wanted to sell the tickets ourselves so that we actually had the budget that was then spent on the event. We wanted to improve catering a bit. If I can tell you so many small things. We had pasta with sauce as catering for talent in Dortmund, which was a stupid idea, because if you have red sauce and people with white shirts on that then are in front of the camera in the end, that is usually not a good thing to do. So we changed the catering into things that could mess wardrobe up a little bit less. We had not enough water, so we sourced a lot more water this time, which for whatever reason was not used at all this time because we had free lemonade, so everybody drank lemonade. We had so many of these tiny things that will probably just be very boring for your audience.
No, I guess it's good to know that things are going well. But yeah, no, it's kind of, it's probably good to know if you're going to an event like UBERFEST last year, and like the main critique is things that are happening not in the venue, like not to do with anything to do with whatever like the TF2 people are doing or being esports or whatever, then, you know, things have gone pretty well. But I guess sort of like I have like one like sort of, maybe not last topic if you find some more things to talk about. One sort of thing I want to sort of sidetrack onto for a minute, because it's something we spoke about before, right? Like, what's your background, at least with TF2? Obviously, you said before, you sort of, when you were looking at games to kind of expand into, you obviously like you knew enough about kind of the history of TF2 for that. But like, what's your background in terms of like, do you have like any background with like competitive TF2 and that kind of thing?
I played TF Classic quite a bit when I was 15 or something, I would say, or maybe 17. So more than a decade ago. But I had zero experience with. I actually saw my first full set of games at UBERFEST 2024. I watched a lot of documentaries. I basically asked everybody what I should watch to get into the community. I obviously got a couple of these Insomnia videos and a couple of other videos that I watched. But my first like real 3 maps were watched at UBERFEST 2024. So I had no background at all before that.
That's really good. How did you find it? Like, how are you enjoying TF2?
All right, let's go there. I first of all love the game, love the community more than the game. I said this a couple of times. I know it sounds like the rock band that says, Wembley, you're the best city we've ever played a gig for, and then they say the same thing in the next city where they are going. But the TF2 community, UBERFEST 2024 was the best event that we, in my opinion, had in 2024, and we had like 6 or 7, and that is mostly because the community was so awesome, so loving, so open, so willing to accept it when we said that things were going a bit overboard here and there, while other people get really mad if you do that. Really, really, really awesome. I think the game is awesome. I think playing the game is awesome. I have one huge issue with TF2, which is entirely non-community related and not even mostly game related. I think it's really tough to watch and understand. And I think Valve have not done a lot to fix that. And I think the only way to really enjoy the broadcast in its entirety that we have been done for UBERFEST for the last 2 years is if you're a die-hard TF2 esports fan. While I can tune into a Counter-Strike major without knowing too much about Counter-Strike, but still enjoying the games. I can watch a League of Legends World Championship. I'm using the same examples for the 3rd time in a row. I'm sorry, but I can tune into it. I can kind of understand it. I can tune into PUBG games, and even if I knew the game not at all, I would quite quickly understand what happens, and I would quite quickly understand why something was as amazing as the casters made it seem to be. And that's just not possible the way that TF2 is produced and the way that TF2 is right now. It's when the casters are shouting, I sometimes had no idea in the very beginning. Now I understand entirely, but in the very beginning, I had no idea what happened. And I think that many people tuning in have the same, like tuning into the broadcast, have the same situation, which is why they leave again. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, because if we just do a broadcast for a highly involved community, fine. But I think it could be so much bigger if people understand more why it's so entertaining.
Yeah, so you talk like when just sort of back to something you said there at the start. You talk about like things in the game, for example, like being kind of hard to follow. Like what, like, are there any like examples that jump to your mind of like things in the game that you think are just hard for viewers?
Like in a standard game, when the last CP is being attacked, in some situations, the only way to know if the attacking team is going to score or not is watching the color of the last little block and at the lower frame of the venue of the screen move to one side or the other. You don't really happen to understand. There are so many quality of life things. The timer is nearing 0, but nothing happens, right? There's no, the numbers are not turning into like a more vibrant color, or they are not getting a bit bigger. It's really tough to keep that in mind when you don't know that time is running out. Sometimes you're on the player jumping on the CP, but sometimes you're not. So you don't even know whether it's being captured or not. My biggest issue, and I don't know why, but my biggest biggest issue is how horribly the visualization of the sniper rifle shooting is done. The AWP in Counter-Strike is such a key point in amazing moments that casters can really lean into emotionally. The sniper rifle in TF2 is just horrible. It feels so not snappy. The sound is horrible. The sound doesn't entirely come at the right time. The rifle doesn't get it's not kicking up. The screen is not shaking a little bit. Basically, some of the most amazing moments, the moment that ended UBERFEST 2024, it just looks shit. I'm so sorry to say it, but it just doesn't look that the casters are losing their minds, the audience is losing their minds, but the people from our staff who were there had no idea what had just happened because it's just not visually shown. And that was the key point that basically every non-TF2 being esports member said. They just said, I don't understand what's happening. I understand the caster is screaming. I understand the audience is screaming. I understand the player is smiling. But what the heck happened on the screen, actually?
Yeah, the sniper one is a great example because, there is no recoil at all, is there, on the sniper? It literally just fires and just goes away. You only know if it hits because a number appears at the side saying the damage it did. That's how you know it hits.
And you don't have a nice tracer to the bullet. I'm not saying add all of this. I'm just saying add something that makes this look as amazing as the accomplishment of the sniper playing person was. Right? It's he flanked the entire team. He pointed out the medic between all of the enemy players. He shot him within a fraction of a second that he had a time to do so. And on screen it looks like, all right, nothing really happened. And that's just not great. I'm so sorry, but it's just not great. And I think that alone would improve the game so much as a viewing esports game.
Yeah, it's a good point, and I do agree to some extent. I guess the thing, at least from my experience, right, is that at least when I started, I played before I watched, and I think that's the same for a lot of other people. But yeah, it does have the kind of barrier to entry for watching a broadcast is sometimes pretty high. We have in the past, and obviously this doesn't help with, like you're saying, the kind of little visual things and things not looking great on screen. But in terms of at least knowing what's happening during a game, we have previously for I would say this was way before my time. There were some videos that were put basically on broadcast to explain things. I remember back at I-58, there was one run by Backcap where it was a 5-minute video just basically explaining how the flow of the game works, what key moments to look out for, things I don't know, for a first person coming into TF2, we see a soldier fly at a medic and force the Uber, and the medic doesn't die, they just use the Uber charge and live, and the soldier dies, and then the caster starts screaming about how amazing the soldier is and how they're the best ever, and it's if you've just started watching the game, you've just seen a soldier die. So it's the opposite to what you'd expect. We did have videos explaining that stuff, the very basic stuff, but obviously that's no good if you miss it when it's on stream, and it was shown once before the series, I think, for the grand final. But yeah, like you say, is there any stuff that what can be done on a broadcast? Obviously, the things we're not going to change, but we're not going to be able to change how things like the sniper work and how there's various bugs with spectating and just general source engine jank just everywhere. But what on a broadcast do you think could be done?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, there are tons of things that only the people behind the game could do, and I would have a ton of ideas in that regard. But in terms of the broadcast, I would love, and there's a bit of pushback and for it because it's technically so much more difficult to do. But I think one of the key points, or one of the only real key things that we have, would be to add a second observer and give some context shots every now and then. We do that in PUBG. PUBG is also really tough to observe. It's really tough to produce because it's 16 teams on the map, and you need to provide context wherever possible so that the users or the viewers actually understand what's happening. I would do the same here, and I would provide some what we call flying cams, so basically third-party angles. I know there are there are functions that are a little bit clunky, unfortunately, in this regard in the TF2 observer client, but I would do that. And then I would just add some overlay things. I would love for this to be visual within the game, which is probably not going to happen because, let's face it, the game is not getting too much love from publisher side. But I would add some features, changing the timers, basically creating some making sure that the urgency that is felt by the players within the game in certain moments is actually also visualized on the broadcast.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned with like flying cameras and stuff. This this is again slightly before my time, but at least in Europe, I think they were used for a bit because like there are functions basically you can have a bind setup which is send camera to coordinates XYZ, and it will just take your camera there in third person. So you you maybe would need a second observer if you wanted to like actually fine tune that position. And it's okay, go to observer 2 to get the flying shot, and then go back to observer 1 who's like back in the regular camera, you know, on like on a first person thing. But like I don't quite recall why it got pushed back, but I remember it got pushed back. I think people just
Yeah.
ended up being more confused from what I've heard from people who had it back then. But nowadays, I think there's only really like one like but yeah, there's a couple of producers that will like throw it occasionally just for like context shots for like rollouts and stuff. But like in the actual heat of battle, because there's only one observer, they're obviously focused on running in first person.
I think that's one of the key points. It's you need another observer, you need a second person, you need to also have that person and their computer be connected to the main production. It just adds a whole nother technical layer and also basically the need for more stuff. And as always, if something has been done the same way for years and years and years, there's always going to be pushback simply because it's new, right? It's
TF2 plays hate
very
change.
normal.
They hate
Yes,
change.
and for good reason, right? Because the TF2 community created their own place, right? This game is entirely and utterly carried by the community, and obviously change, and especially from an outsider, like suggested from an outsider like me, will always be really difficult to accept. Which is why I'm gonna say it's perfectly fine if it ends up still being done the way that it's done right now, because potentially you don't need additional viewers from the outside to be hyped about TF2, right? Potentially the standard avenue, you play the game for whatever reason, you like it enough to think about whether there's a competitive scene, you jump into the scene, and then you end up being a community member just the way that you did. Maybe it's just the only thing the community needs.
Yeah, honestly, like it's cool to hear like your take on that. Obviously, as someone like you say, you played TF Classic, which is an entirely different game. Like
Yeah.
it's an entirely different genre of game at that point. So to come in and yeah, no, it's cool. It actually like because obviously people listening to this podcast, probably myself, we've got Bethy's, everyone else we've had on, we're all like in the mind of people who have been doing this for a long time at this point. We've been watching it, playing whatever. So I don't know, having like the actual outside, like someone come in and say, look, like this actually like step back for a moment. Like if you're trying to do this for the first time, it's not like it's not ideal. But no, thanks for saying that. Like, and hopefully, I don't know whether it'd be UBERFEST next year, whether like config, not Master Config, Team Contrast 2, that's the one. When that comes out, like it's like a modded version of the game that's in current development that's going to hopefully fix a lot of things. Maybe some of your things might end up getting fixed there, like sort of in passing, because there are a load of quality of life changes of basically like stuff that Valve has kind of neglected for a while. But I'm aware we have like I think we've recently just hit the hour mark. I'm not quite sure. We've been going for a long while. Like so, I guess if you were, do you have things to be doing? I know we said originally about an hour, right? So
Yeah, I unfortunately just have another meeting for another
okay.
game, and so I unfortunately have to go. But if you ever want to talk about any of these topics in more length, I'm super happy to do so. I mean, I love talking about anything we're doing with being esports. I could talk about forever.
No, it's great. It's great to hear that context, right? Because as you say, like a lot of our audience is American, and even like sort of some people won't have ever got a chance to speak to you at LAN at UberFest, and also there's plenty of people who are just viewing the event online. So you're hearing a bit about like the background and so how it came to be. I think it's mega interesting, and I think it's been great for how much insight you think you've been able to give us. So I guess if you've got final shout outs, maybe now is the time. Else we'll wrap up.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if anybody who listens to this has any questions, I am an open book. You can find me on the UBERFEST Discord, which is a good place to be if you want to find out as soon as we're planning to do another one. My socials are BE_Gideon, or at least that's my Discord account. You can find me through that and ask me whatever you want to ask. And then, yeah, if anybody has any suggestions or any ideas, I also would love to hear those.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Gideon, and thank you so much, Bethnix, for producing and recording this one. Not sure exactly when this one's going to get uploaded, but thank you both. And this has been another episode of Overtime. We'll see you for the next one.